Daniel's fingers trembled against the holographic interface as he reviewed the diplomatic protocol files for the 100th time. Outside the observation deck of the Meridian, the Zathrene mothership loomed like a crystalline cathedral, its bioluminescent surfaces pulsing with patterns that no human translator could fully decode. "You're doing it again," Commander Sarah Chen said, materializing beside him without warning. "The Queen specifically requested you for the cultural exchange, not some algorithm." "That's the problem," Daniel muttered, closing the files. "Why me? I'm just a xenolinguist. Melissa should be handling this. She's the actual diplomat." 3 months. That's how long humanity had known they weren't alone. 3 months since the Zathrene arrived in orbit around Jupiter's moon Europa, their intentions unclear, their technology centuries beyond human comprehension. And 2 weeks since Queen Jareth had begun asking for the one called Daniel specifically. The docking procedure took 40 minutes. Daniel felt every second of it in his chest. The Zathrene didn't use traditional airlocks. Instead, a membrane of what appeared to be living tissue sealed around the shuttle, contracting until the two vessels became one organism. Melissa was waiting in the reception chamber, her exosuit's translation matrix already humming with activity. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes that no amount of neural stimulants could hide. 2 hours, she said without preamble. "That's all I've managed in 3 days. Every time I try to establish dialogue, she asks where you are. Daniel, what happened during your first contact?" He remembered. How could he forget? It had been an accident, really. While the official delegation had been meeting in the grand amphitheater, Daniel had wandered into what he thought was a library. Instead, he'd found himself in a garden that existed in 6 dimensions, where the Zathrene queen herself tended to plants that grew in crystalline fractals. We talked about botany," he said lamely. "She showed me her collection. I showed her pictures of Earth's redwoods." "Botany?" Melissa's expression suggested she thought he was hiding something. "The most powerful being in a civilization that spans 40 star systems wants to discuss trees with you." Before he could respond, the chamber's walls rippled. The temperature dropped 15 degrees in an instant, and a scent like ozone and honey filled the air. Queen Jareth entered was inadequate for what actually occurred. She seemed to phase into existence, her form simultaneously solid and translucent, humanoid but definitely other. Her voice bypassed their translators entirely, resonating directly in their auditory cortex. "Why do you avoid me, human?" Melissa stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. "Your Majesty, we apologize for any." "Not you." The Queen's attention fixed on Daniel with an intensity that made his vision blur at the edges. "You, Daniel Chenakafer, for 13 days I have requested your presence. For 13 days you have sent others. Why?" The truth lodged in his throat like a stone. Around them, the chamber's walls began displaying images, the garden from his first visit, the conversation they'd shared. But interspersed were other images, Zathrene worlds, civilizations rising and falling, and always at the center, beings like Jareth, queens who lived for millennia while everything around them changed and died. "Because I'm scared," Daniel heard himself say. Melissa's sharp intake of breath was audible even through her helmet. The Queen tilted her head, an almost human gesture. "Of me. Of what you represent." The words came faster now, years of xenological theory crystallizing into personal truth. "You're functionally immortal. Your people's shortest-lived caste has a lifespan of 300 years. I'm 32. In the cosmic scale you operate on, I'm less than a mayfly." The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the ship seemed to pause. "That first day," Daniel continued, "in your garden we talked for hours. You told me about a flower that blooms once every millennium on your homeworld. I told you about cherry blossoms, how they last only a week. And you said," his voice cracked, "you said that's what made them precious." Queen Jareth moved closer, And this time Daniel didn't retreat. Her form solidified, becoming more humanoid, a courtesy she rarely extended. "I have lived for 6,243 of your years," she said softly. "I have witnessed the birth and death of stars. I have walked on worlds that no longer exist. And in all that time, do you know what I have learned?" Daniel shook his head. "That consciousness, true consciousness, exists in the moment it is experienced. You think your brevity makes you less. I see a being who will burn bright and fierce and beautiful, who will pack more genuine living into your handful of decades than many of my kind do in millennia." She gestured to the images on the walls. "You avoided me because you thought you were insignificant. I sought you because you reminded me what significance actually means." The queen extended what might have been a hand, crystalline and glowing. "The cherry blossoms, Daniel. They do not apologize for their brief existence. They simply bloom. Will you bloom with me? Will you teach an old being how to see the universe through mayfly eyes again?" Melissa had backed away, understanding that this moment wasn't about diplomacy or first contact protocols. It was about something more fundamental, connection across the vast gulfs that separated not just species, but experiences of time itself. Daniel reached out, his human hand meeting the queen's alien one. "I'd like that," he said. "I'd like that very much." Later, after hours of conversation that ranged from quantum botany to the philosophy of ephemeral existence, Melissa found Daniel in the observation deck. The Zathrine ship was preparing to depart for its next diplomatic stop. "You know what this means," she said. "The Queen wants you as permanent cultural liaison. You'd be spending months, maybe years, with them." Daniel watched the crystalline ship shimmer against the stars. "Yeah. That's most of your remaining lifespan." He smiled, thinking of cherry blossoms. "That's exactly why I should do it." Melissa nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think she's right about you." "About what?" "You're going to burn very, very bright. And